Jorja Smith is an English singer-songwriter, R&B singer who has been making quite a few people interested in her sound because she's been doing some features as of late. Last year she was on a Drake song, then she was on Kali Uchis's album that came out early this year. Great album. If you've not already heard it, go check that one out. And most notably, she was on the Black Panther soundtrack. Now, I recall when I did my review for the Black Panther soundtrack, I wasn't really into her song. The song is I Am. Didn't really think too much of her vocals. Didn't really think much of her contribution to Kali Uchis's album either. I mean, I just thought she was going to be one of those kind of comes and then goes singer-songwriters that just doesn't really stick around and doesn't really build up much of a fan base. However, I was very wrong. She's not just the flavour of the month R&B singer that suddenly people have started to decide that they think is amazing. She's actually built up a decent following. This album's had a decent amount of hype behind it, and I've got to say, I can see why. This is pretty impressive for a debut album. The album does a really good job of blending hip-hop beats with R&B beats. I think that's kind of something that you've been hearing a lot of lately, especially in like mainstream R&B. But similar to an artist like SZA, SZA has an amazing voice, and Jorja Smith, I mean, I must say, at first I did not get into her voice at all, but now I can totally see why I was wrong. She actually sings incredibly well. She has an English charm to her voice too. I think that's quite a nice touch to her, because generally, you know, R&B singers don't typically break out from the UK in a massive way. I mean, occasionally that does happen, but usually they're American, and to hear an artist like Jorja Smith with this like English twang, an English accent, I think it's pretty cool. I wouldn't exactly say there's anything going on here that you've never heard before though. I mean, it's very much traditional R&B with a few tracks that have a hip-hop flair to them in the beat, few tracks that have pianos in them. You know, it's very much what you'd expect from an R&B album, which I'd say is probably its biggest flaw. I mean, there are a few tracks that really just don't stand out in any particular way, really. February 3rd is pretty much generic, to be honest. The One is very much an Emily Sandé song. I mean, it could be if you didn't know the singer that was singing. It is a bit of a shame that she does hit a couple of cliches here and there, because she has a lot of talent, and it's kind of sad to just see it get wasted on some very ordinary sounding instrumentals. You know, I think we've kind of broke out into a new era of R&B where you get artists like Sampha and Anderson .Paak who do so much more to add to the genre of R&B than just your straightforward R&B soul jams. I think they're just far more interesting to listen to. You know, you've got your Sampha who blends electronic sounds, you've got Anderson .Paak who blends in soul, funk, hip-hop, just everything he possibly can, and it always works out really well. Whereas, to be honest, Jorja Smith hasn't quite come into her own on this album, to be honest, which is a shame, but I see a lot of potential, definitely. I mean, the first 3 tracks are friggin' stellar, absolutely fantastic. Lost and Found has a great beat to it. The singing on this one is perhaps the best we've got on the whole album. The way the intro comes in, and it's just like this instrumental for a while, the beat just keeps going, and you know, you've got Jorja doing these like in the background that sounds so heavenly. That intro does go on for quite a while, but by the time she comes in, it's like 1 minute 30 something, and it's totally worth the wait, 'cause she's like, why don't we all fall down? And the greatness continues into Teenage Fantasy as well. This is another fantastic song. It's a shame that the best songs come right at the start of the album, because these are absolutely great. The hook on this one is really good as well. Why when we get heaven? It's very much general teenage type stuff though. I mean, it is kind of lowest common denominator in the sense that it's appealing to a very specific audience who will probably listen to it and find something to relate to. But you know, I mean, when you're young, this is the kind of thing you're probably thinking, and you hear this, you're going to be like, yeah, you know, I can relate to this, and that's not a bad thing. It's kind of like that Khalid album that came out last year, you know, very much playing to that same audience. Not necessarily something you're going to find much interest out of when you're past that teen age, but you can understand why people would relate to it. I mean, you're not really doing a terrible thing by listening to this. You know, you could be listening to like Maroon 5 or fucking some BB Rexa or whatever the fuck you could be listening to. So like, you're not doing anything wrong by going to Georgia Smith as opposed to those kinds of artists. And in all fairness to Georgia, she does dismantle this teen fantasy that a lot of teenagers have in a pretty good way. I mean, she's sort of playing to this idea that, you know, you have these inner thoughts of how things are going to turn out to be, but it never quite works out because the person that you are interested in doesn't text you back or whatever. Where Do I Go is probably my favourite track on here though. I mean, the friggin' beat on this one is just so good, and there's a nice little bass in the background too with the boom, boom, boom. Yeah, this is a really good track. Yeah, again, like, this is a nice opener to the album, but then the next track after this, not really into it. Bit of a bland instrumental going on, not really that much in the lyrics that I can find that interesting. But a track like On Your Own though does work for me in the sense that it's really just lovely to listen to. I mean, her voice on this one, again, has those heavenly type background vocals, and her singing's just always nice to hear anyway. So even when this album doesn't grip me that much, I'm still enjoying it, you know? Blue Lights is quite an interesting track. It takes it back to her school days. She's talking about how this, you know, person that she knows constantly gets himself into trouble. Blue Lights quite obviously referring to the police and how she's referring to this person's going to be caught in that issue one day and that kind of thing. She makes a pretty cool reference to Shook Ones by Mobb Deep. Can't really argue with that. It's good to see that she knows her hip-hop history. Pretty rare in younger artists, I must admit. Would be quite interesting to see where she could take these storytelling tracks so in the future. I mean, this isn't the most like captivating type track, you know, you're not on the edge of your seat finding out what's going on, or you're not like intrigued by, oh, why did this person get arrested or whatever. Like, I would be interested to see more from her in a more storytelling way, in a bit more detail, you know, that kind of thing. On the track Lifeboats, which is actually a freestyle, she's very much rapping on this track. I mean, it's not the most amazing type of rapping here, but it totally reminds me of someone like Kate Tempest on her Everybody Down album. Like, totally similar cadence in the voice. You know, here she's referencing a few political issues like taxation and minorities jumping up the next tax bracket. Very much in the vein of what Kate Tempest sings about on every song she ever makes, and I'm quite a fan of Kate Tempest, so it was good to hear Georgia Smith take a more rapping angle, because even though it wasn't that amazing, it was cool to see her try something different. I mean, this could have just gone in the direction of every track's a piano-led soul jam, you know, or not even a jam at points, just very much a ballad. But here we change things up, and I'm pretty impressed with what we get. And after this, we pretty much hit these slower tracks like Goodbyes. Not particularly that amazing in the lyrics. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's referencing a death here, but there's pretty much standard imagery that you get from the lyrics here. It's not like there's anything too amazing going on, but I mean, you know, she's very young. You shouldn't really expect too much from an artist this age with the lyrics. But, you know, it's kind of like I've heard it all before. And Don't Make Me Cry is a lovely closing track. I really like the way her voice like flutters with the instrumental. It's really nice, this one. It's a nice closer to the album. So yeah, like I said, I mean, even when things aren't too instrumentally interesting or compelling, I still like her voice over these instrumentals. So I can't really rip into this album too much at all because she's got a lot of talent. To be writing your own songs at this age is very impressive. To perform them to this ability is also very impressive. And I think this is very much one of those albums that kind of sets an artist in stone. Like, they're there, they're gonna improve on this in the future, and you're basically just waiting for them to bring out that next release because you know that's going to be the one that will be a lot better. And for what it is, it's really good. So yeah, I'm going to go C+. I like this album. I think it's solid. I think Georgia Smith has a lot of potential. If you haven't heard this album, go listen to it. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to love this one and probably call it one of the albums of the year. I can see that happening. So let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews. Hope you like this review and have a good day.